Hey, good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's well. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're coming at you live from the road. I am stationed in the Toms River, Lakewood, New Jersey area for this morning. Hope to be back with you live in the studio tomorrow morning. Thanks so much for joining us any day. Thanks for joining us, those of you who are live. Happy Wednesday. And for those who are here any day of the week on audio, on video, thank you so much for being here. We were talking yesterday about the concept of infusing energy into our time. And what we really started to break down yesterday was this idea that the properties that are around us are much more malleable, they're much more infusible, they're much more playable, if that's even a word, than we would have otherwise expected. When we come into this world, we have to always remember that when we come into this world, our brains are creating neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity creates assumptions that may or may not be true. There's some great research done with people of different socioeconomic backgrounds. And I think this is written in one of Gladwell's books, where he profiled two different people. One that came from a little bit of a lower socioeconomic class, in which he was always taught that authority was something to be feared. And one that came from a more of an upper socioeconomic class, who was taught that they can manipulate authority. And they followed these people around, and they found that so many times in life, when either one was faced with an issue, hit a wall in school, on a parking ticket, whatever it is, nothing major, the difference between how each one reacted was diametrically opposed. Where the one that grew up in a world in which authority was seen as something to be feared, they just almost panicked and were more compliant, maybe admitted to things that they didn't really actually do. And where someone that grew up where authority was something that was able to be manipulated, he navigated the system much differently, with much more confidence. It's because we were exposed to certain things, and in that exposure, you created assumptions. When you created assumptions, those assumptions ultimately dictated whether the thing in front of you had certain power or not. In many ways, that's sort of how we live our lives. When we ascribe power to things, we infuse power in that thing. There's a great Torah book called Chovos Halavavos, which is the duties of the heart. And in there, the rabbi speaks about the concept of trust, of faith, of bitachon. And one of the most interesting things that he gives in that book, amongst many things on how one builds faith in God, is he explains that he doesn't explain it in this specific way, but my understanding of it is we have power. We have energy. We have spiritual power. And one of the things that we have power on is giving power to other things. We infuse other things with power. So if I put my faith, if you will, in my boss to give me my livelihood, then the boss, if you will now be endowed with the power that I had to create livelihood. So the connection between the divine and me in the area of sustenance, I have now handed to somebody else. And I put my faith in that person. If I hand the power to heal me to a doctor, then now I have taken the healing power that comes from God, and I've handed it to the individual that is in front of me and infused him with more power than he would have had. Now, the challenge with that is that once we start putting things in between us and the divine, we block some level of that power. Doesn't mean that we don't got to go to doctors. We most definitely need to go into the world of science. That's why God gave us a world to co-create, to figure out how to heal people, to build hospitals, to create armies, to protect ourselves, to create police forces, to create governments, to create schools. You don't wake up in the morning and expect wisdom to fall into our heads. We have the ability to take a relationship with the divine, a power that is within us, and diffuse it outside us. And the challenge with that is that we don't understand that we could be fusing things to connect to them, not to give up our power. We don't give up our power to create livelihood that is given between us and God by putting it in the hands of another person. The other person could be a messenger. The other person could be a conduit. The boss that I have, I'm responsible to do an amazing job, but I don't now take that boss and make him into a mini God. I don't take the doctor and make him into a mini God now. I don't take the government and make them into the mini gods. It doesn't work that way. They're messengers. They're conduits. They're the in between. But at the end of the day, the power that I have is infused directly from the creator of the world to me, which means I have the ability to infuse it in things, power things up properly. I don't give away my power. I share my power. I share my energy. I connect without giving up, believing that something else has power over me. And that applies to people. I hope I'm making sense. I hope it's being clear. If not, I'll clarify. But it also applies to things. It applies to the properties of the physical world. And it applies to time. It applies to my life. I have to infuse my time with my spiritual energy. I have to recognize that it's a gift that I've been given. I don't give it up. I'm not thrown by it. I don't sit around and say, I can't, I don't have enough. Or it's something that I can't control or impact. Time is a resource. And we are given a power, a spiritual energy called the spirituality, called our soul. And we can come into time, into our day, and infuse it with a power. And that power gives me the ability to engage in it at a higher level. And that applies to everything. When I share my divineness with my people around me, I don't give it up. I connect through it. It's a conduit. I'm giving to them. I'm not giving up the power, I'm sharing the power. We can spend more time deepening ourselves into this area. But what that means, though, is that we really have a lot more control than we think to create the power that we need in order to have the day that we want. So just by, I hope, understanding this, we have to now deepen it a little bit more. And I want to hit on a misconception. Many times we go into life and we assume that if I don't feel it, then I don't have it. Many times we'll engage in something and we'll assume that if I don't feel it, like if I don't sense it, I don't have it. So if I don't sense excitement for this time of the day, I feel like I can't. I feel like it's too hard. Then I don't have the energy. I'm too tired. When someone says, like, I'm just too tired, you want to go do this thing? I'm just too tired. Sometimes you physically need a rest. So let's put that to the side. Sometimes you just don't feel energetic. And when you don't feel energetic, You assume that we have an accurate reading on the energy levels that are within us. I just don't feel it. It's just not true. You can't really feel the extent of what you have inside you. Spirituality isn't something that we sense. It can be sensed, but it's not immediately sensed. What's inside us is not something that we have the ability to fully understand at the level that it is. So almost always when we engage in something, we're engaging in something and we are protecting ourselves because the survival part of our brain is saying, relax, you can't waste all your energy. If you waste all of your resources, you're going to have nothing left. What if you don't have tomorrow? If you're going to use up your energy and then there's a situation that potentially is going to risk your survival, how are you going to deal with that? And so in our heads, we've got the survival part of our brain saying, relax, don't expend. What if you don't have enough? What if you don't have enough? What if you don't have enough? But the spiritual part of us, which is the essence of our greatness, is saying, are you out of your mind? This is an endless resource. This is an endless resource. What's going to happen? You have to rest the body. But how do you know how much rest your body needs until you push it to a place in which you're going overboard? How do you know how far you can go until you push yourself too far? So when we go through our days, there's this tug of war between the part of our minds that are saying, you don't got enough, and the part of our minds that are saying, you don't know what you got. How do you know what you got until you spend it? How do you know how much water is in the tank until you finish out the water? You have no idea. There's a wall between you and your energy. Like, how do you know what's in there? You don't fill it out. Open up the spigot, let it all drain out, and you can measure how much you got. Oh, it doesn't end? Yeah, it's because it's an unending source. And the survival part of our brains are going, oh, are you crazy? Are you nuts? I'm getting tired. What's going to be tomorrow? What's going to be next week? Then you got to use it with common sense. You can't just every night stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning and wake up 2 hours later, unless you can. But when we're in life, when we wake up, when we're in a regular, normal day, we're constantly in a space where we are measuring how much energy do I have for this? And the answer is almost always, I don't know. How do you find out? The answer is you force it. There's no way to know how much energy you have until you force it. Like a pump. It doesn't flow out. You have to pump it out. Your soul is like a pump. It's like a resource. It's like the oil underneath the ground. You don't blow it out. You have to dig deep. And you got to create the right mechanisms that could extract it and bring it into this physical world. That's how it works with our souls. I understand. We don't know how much energy we're going to be able to have to infuse into this next hour, into this next minute, into the next day, into this next conversation. No idea how much I can bring now. It's late, it's early, I'm tired, I did this already. I'm doing the same thing over and over again. He said, what? She said, what? I can't do this anymore. Another time, doesn't speak to me. You have this? This doesn't speak to me. All this stuff, just excuses that our brain gives to conserve the little physical energy that we have. Because if you remember the tug of war between our brains and our souls, because our brain is saying you don't got enough, because our brain is an organ that conserves energy. And our soul is saying you have no idea how much you have. No, really. You have no clue. how much you got. The only way you're ever going to know. The only way you're ever going to know is if you force it out. You got to force it out. It means you have to, if you have more energy, get into a situation, you have to inject more energy than you think you have. It means you have to bring more enthusiasm than you think you have in the tank. It means you have to force it out. When you wake up in the morning and you respect your mind too much, you're never going to do this. Wake up in the morning and you respect, if you will, you're in awe of your physical properties. You can't ever do it. Your body works for your soul, and it's got to be healthy. You got to eat right and sleep right, and take care of yourself, of course. But you don't work for your body. The only way to know how much energy you have that could be expended is if you go through that beginning, that little gap. I don't think I have it. And you say, well, I'm going to bring it anyways. Go from I could to I should. Go from I don't know if I have it to I have to bring it. Transition from trying to create a litmus test in your mind to what kind of energy you have for the task and for the day ahead of you, to flipping it and saying, what's the energy needed? I'm going to force more energy than I think. Now you start deepening your mechanism. You create a pump that reaches deeper. Maybe we'll do this tomorrow. For those on the trip, we speak about this idea of responsibility leads to ability, which we'll get to. I want to build it up a little bit. When we understand that the goal in life is not to disconnect the power. It's not to disconnect what we have, to look at everything else and say, oh my gosh, I can't. All what we have is to recognize that we have something that's really, it's a never-ending resource of energy. It's a tap into the infinite, which is a property that is beyond the finite. Realize that, and this is the key piece, that the only way we will ever understand the energy that we have to share is only when we start extending it when we don't feel like we have it. That's when we start to tap into it. Let's go back to the homework assignment and then we'll close for today. Remember, we gave that homework assignment to look at the next 10 minutes. See if you can look at that scale. Pick any part of your day. Envision a scale of 1 to 100 and ask yourself, where is your energy at? I want you to take 10 minutes and increase that litmus test up a notch. 10 more degrees. If you were at a 20, go to a 30. If you were at a 50, go to a 60. But when you're doing it, I want you to listen for your brain saying, we don't got it. And then I want you to tell yourself, yeah, of course I don't got it. I never think I got it. That's not how my brain works. I'm going to force it. I'm going to force it. Force 10 minutes of 10 degrees more energy. And then we're going to start together to build a deeper mechanism. Dig into the deeper aspects of the well, the infinite power that we have. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. Sorry for the difference, the background, the whole deal. With God's help, I look forward to seeing you back in our normal situations tomorrow. Have an amazing day. With God's help, I can't wait to see you tomorrow.